Alright, so in the last tutorial we did the stack of the data structure. Now we're going to do the queue. So most people are aware about the queue. Queue is basically something very similar to the line. So what we're going to do in the queue section is about the first thing EQ, then the DQ, then peak is empty is full. These are the 5 things that we're going to perform into the queue data structure. So let's just understand this real quick, what we're going to do. So the first thing is we're gonna initialize. So what we're gonna do is basically start the queue as an empty queue. Then what we're gonna do is enqueue. So we have basically 3 steps into an enqueue, which is basically adding the new element into the queue. So check if the queue is full or not. If it's full capacity, no need to add anything. And if it's not under full capacity, then add the new element into the end of the queue and update the rear point as the new last element. And then once we have the EQ ready, we'll move on to the DQ. So you understood? 3 simple steps. Check if the queue is full or not. If it's not full, then add the new element at the end of the queue and update the rear pointer to point to the last new last element. Let's just say new last element. That sounds more better, right? Okay. So done here. Say self.queue append. We're gonna append the element. And then we're gonna inform that we appended the element up here. Element blank is appended. All right, now DQ operations. So in DQ also we have 3 simple steps. Check if the queue is empty or not. Basically we're gonna first thing we're gonna do is check if the queue is empty or not. And how do we check that? Length of the queue equals to 0. If the length of the queue is 0, then the queue is empty. By extension, that's pretty simple, right? And if queue is not empty, then access the element in the front of the queue. What basically DQ does is access the front element of the queue. It will return you the front element of the queue, right? And then remove the element from the front of the queue and update the front pointer, right? It basically works pretty similar to pop, right? It works pretty not pretty similar. It's exactly like the pop. It just is named as DQ. It works exactly like pop. Then we have peak. Peak is also an interesting one. It also have 3 basic steps. Check if the queue is empty or not. Then if you don't have the empty queue, then what you do is basically access the element at the front of the queue and return the front element without removing it. All right. Peak does not remove the element. It basically all it does is just return the element at the first position. Then is empty and is full. Basically simple. The most easiest and most simple ones are these. Is empty and is full. So is empty basically returns you like false or maybe true. It just returns boolean values. If it's like totally empty, then it will return is empty equals to true, and if it's not equals to true, then it will return false. Mm. So I think all of these things are mostly done. So meanwhile, I'll just give you a brief overview of the definition of queue. A queue is a linear data structure which follows the FIFO, which means first in, first out principle. This basically means that the first element added to the queue will be the first one to be removed, right? The first element that is added into the queue will be the first element that will be removed. It's just basically like a queue line where people are waiting for the service. The first person that came in the line is the one who is going to be served first. This is how the queue works. So, done with all the chattings. Now let's just focus on the code. As like the last one, we created an object, and through object we are accessing all of these different functions. So first we did like the enqueue, by which we are going to add the elements into queue so that we have at least something added into queue so that we don't have like the empty queues. All right, so let's just do the peak, one for peak, and then we're going to do like queued and say dq. All right. Mm, then queue out. Let's just remove this one. Queue is empty or not. Let's just check this. If this condition is true or not. Right, and how do you check that is empty, or you can also write is full. If it's like totally full as per the max length, then it returns like true. If it's like totally full, it returns true. All right, so here you can see the output is pretty much exactly perfect as it was supposed to be. So here your queue in the data structure also ends. See you in the next one with some new tutorial and some more exciting stuff.